Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is Christine Arilo, your host, and I welcome you here to this place where we reimagine the way we and the world work from the inside out, bringing together leadership, well-being, and wisdom. Today we are going to dive into the series that we've been bopping along in here, flowing along in. Do we bop? I don't even know what bop totally means, but lest we be too serious, because it kind of is a serious topic here. We are here exploring the feminine leadership archetypes. And today we're going to be exploring the seventh of the 8 archetypes. My goodness, we're getting close to the completion of the series. And I'm super excited to introduce you to the archetype of the Coherency Creator. I'm going to say a little bit about that here as we get started. I like to think of the archetype as a guest, so kind of bring her in here, almost like she's in the green room, kind of hanging out, and then really dive into this. I often call coherency a superpower. When I work with, it doesn't really matter what leader I work with or conversation I have. Most of us don't even understand what coherency is. It's one of those weird words, unfamiliar words, really. I don't know that it's not actually weird at all. It's actually very unfamiliar. But it has so much power, not just the word of coherency, but understanding that you inside of you and me, as leaders in this world, and remember here at Feminine Power Time, for those of you who've been around, you'll know this for a while. Those of you that might be new here, we are redefining what leadership means. So when I say leadership, we say that leadership is not just a position that's given, although you may be a leader within a position given and have power and authority and influence. But just because you are in a position of power, authority, and influence does not make you a leader. And all you got to do is take a look around the world right now, and we have evidence. We have evidence of this. And we've been sharing this wisdom for a long time. And I think finally it's cracking through human consciousness at a deeper level of like, oh, I am a leader because I choose to use my voice, my choices, my voice, my presence, my action to be part of influencing and co-creating and shaping a better world, a brighter world, a more humane, compassionate world in which it is life-sustaining and it's sustainable and all of the things that are totally possible when you and I realize that we ourselves have the power of personal leadership within ourselves. We have leadership within our family systems, our team systems, our community systems, and we also have the capacity for leadership inside of the bigger culture and society and system and ecosystems we swim in. And it doesn't mean we have to be at the top of a hierarchy. It doesn't mean that we need a C in an organization before our name. It can mean those things. But a lot of leadership is quietly done. It's not posted on social media, and you don't get awards for it. Sometimes you do, but we all have that within us. And so one of the reasons that we're doing this feminine leadership archetype series is because a lot of what we look at and see as leadership traditionally been through the lens of our current culture that goes back at least to the Romans, if not longer, depending on where you count. But let's just go back even to the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of that came through a certain archetype that looked a lot like white males. And again, this is not white male bashing. Feminine leadership is not male or female. It's not gender. It's an energy. It's an energy, and it is not currently valued in our society. It's woo-wooed, it's poo-pooed, it's shoo-shooed, even though it's the connective tissue that keeps so much together. So I remember when I was in graduate school getting my MBA, one of the top 3 business schools in the country at that time, and so many of the leadership books that I read were written by white men or women who looked like men, like they had a black blazer on and a colored shirt. And I was just like, where is like all the heart? Where's all the soul? Where's all the creativity and the innovation? And obviously there's been people who have brought that forth, and there's more and more of it coming. But if we don't have language for this energy that I'm calling the feminine leadership archetypes, we can't value it ourselves. And you do some of it in our normal life, like a lot of the things I've been talking about here with you all. You might be, oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, I do that. And pretty much every person I work with one-on-one, they'll say to me, oh, I do that, but I didn't know it was a thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's a thing, and it's a superpower, especially with this Coherency Creator. I'm thinking of like a couple different people that I work with that are in positions of power within an organization. They are operating at what would be called the executive level. But I always say I don't do executive coaching. I do leadership coaching, and I help leaders be a leader wherever they're at, and they might use it in their role as executive. But we don't need more people trying to be executive leaders. We need more people being true human-centered, smart, wise leaders, and then we can use it in any role we have. But that's like a whole other topic for a different day. But when we start to talk about some of the feedback that they get that's also maybe not so positive, or the frustration that they have about why people can't see incoherencies and why I'm like, oh, you have this superpower that you and I we're going to dive in today, called the Coherency Creator. You have a incoherency spotter, and you have an ability to see how to create structure, process, relationships that create coherency. I was even just talking to one more example to a good friend of mine who is also does leadership coaching, but he was a chief people officer, and so he works with different executives, all over the world for many, many years. And one of the things that he is really good at is working with executives who are having a challenge on the same team, working together and helping them create synergy in chaos, or versus chaos in like frustration. And I was saying to him, I'm like, you are a coherency creator. You have the ability to see these relationships and where the incoherencies are, and then help people in that relationship find common ground and actually create coherency instead of conflict. And he was like, oh, like, yeah, but that's a superpower right there. And the world needs that, so you might want to think about bringing that more forward in the work you do. So as we go through this today, I'm going to kind of invite you into a couple things. One is to open up your potential to be what I call a conscious coherency creator in your life, in situations that show up in your life, in relationships, in your work in the world, and in the world at large. And sometimes, as we'll explore today, oftentimes, what's true about all of these archetypes is it's your presence that is the superpower. And we'll talk about that today with, you can't be a coherency creator when you're not centered in your own presence. And we can do small things to add to coherency. For example, there's something that's happening here in our community where they're trying to tear down these woods, which you and I we've talked about this before, and it's completely part of the Mishigash it's part of the UNCA, North Carolina University, and they're just really only interested in money at this point. And so one of the things we've done is we've shown up at meetings that are happening around all of this, just our presence, to be part of creating coherency. Instead of we're not like crazy people, like, we're going to chain ourselves to the trees, but we're bringing forth potential ideas and solutions that could be different. And that's part of creating coherency inside of a space. So there's lots of different ways this is going to show up, but I love to make this practical for you. And then I also, as we're going through this, you're also going to really hear me sharing kind of to get some personal awareness around what supports you in creating coherency within yourself and within the collective, what interferes with coherency or weakens it within yourself or others, and what are the indicators that you are being a coherent instrument versus you're adding to the chaos. And if you think about coherency, just to give you a little kind of taste here before we bring in the Coherency Creator, these are some words, some energies, some frequencies that are present when coherency is in the field. So let me just read these here for you. Alignment, resonance, harmony, beauty, clarity, presence, ease, and grace. And so just take a breath and let's slow down here as we do. I'm just going to read those again because this is the why this matters now. These energies, these states of being, this energy, think of coherency as a field. And is that field chaotic, or is it full? Is it chaotic? Is it full of chaos? That's the opposite of coherency, and we see that out there in the world. It is a tactic, because when there's chaos and continued chaos, it keeps people stuck at a shadow frequency of fear and shame and blame and isolation and domination, and we could go on forever naming all the shadows. That's what chaos does. Chaos is meant to help us make shift. That's why I followed Catalyst with Coherency Creator. Catalyst is, we want the catalyst, but we're not meant to live in continual catalyzation. It becomes chaotic, and in chaos, our nervous systems can't settle in order to be able to have the clarity, the intuition, the resonance. And so we might not be able to affect a policy or a TV show or whatever mishigash might be going on out there. But the more of us who can consciously show up both as catalysts, like we've already talked about, and if you missed that episode, do go back and listen to that, but as coherency creators in any situation, even ones inside of ourselves. So meaning when you feel anxiety, when you have anger coursing through your brains, when you feel dislocated and confused, whatever it is that is not alignment, resonance, harmony, beauty, feel that energy again, clarity, presence, ease, and grace, you can find yourself back to your center and be able to create coherency in your life, inside, outside, and then from there, expand that into the fields in which you show up, whether that's your family system, your team system, an organization system, your local community system, a one-on-one relationship you might have, a project that you're working on. Like you all, what we're about to open up here is like gold. So I encourage you to grab some water, some tea, let's go for a walk. I'm sipping out of my Ayurvedic Institute bottle here. And let's bring in Coherency Creator. What do you say? All right. So just deep breath in and out. And before I share the transmission on this archetype, I want you just to go ahead and breathe into your body. And specifically to breathe in to the center. It's called the center channel. In yogic science, it's called your Sushumna. It's a center channel that runs through your body. Sometimes it's called a cordon of light. You just can't see it. Or you can also think of it like if you were a windsock, it would be the pole, the center that holds you. And also you could think of it like a cello. And it's that center chord that goes all the way down into the point, the standing base to point into the ground. So it connects you to the earth, connects you to yourself, and it connects you to spirit, source, universe, something bigger than yourself. wisdom says that the universe is always working towards harmony. It's always working towards a higher level of coherence. And you can think of coherence as like music. It's a great example. When you hear dissonant, discord music, think of what that might be for you. It can be different for all people. As I was just reminded, when sometimes one of my discords is techno music or like really strong gangster rap or death metal music, very dissonant for me. Anything that has like violence in it or like a beat that just feels like it's not a natural beat but a force beat is dissonant on my system. So coherence is the opposite of that. Coherence is that it could still be loud, but it feels those things. It feels resonance. There's a resonance there. There's a harmony there. There's beauty. And Noah and I were just at a concert a couple of weeks ago, and this was for Rhiannon Giddens, which was lovely. And she does the banjo, and she had a young man come on who had he had white overalls on, no shirt, super cute, awesome short dreadlocks. And he did this rap that was also connected to this Celtic thing. And it was just like very different than the other music that had been playing, but it was so good, and it was harmonious. It was resonance, and so it's not the specific like idea of like a label on something. We can feel coherence in our bodies, and so one of the reasons I'm always sharing. Do you have a daily morning centering practice that you do every day that connects you? And just connect in here by just breathing into your body. And then breathe in to your heart. And then breathe into your mind. And feel yourself connected to the ground, to earth. Almost like that sits bone is just like whoomph down like tree roots. And then opening up the roof of your head, almost like it's like a sunroof, and just letting light stream in. And you can call it source, spirit, just the sun, just filling you up with light. And then connecting with your spirit, which I always feels like a little bit like it's like Glinda the Good Witch, kind of around us, like that bubble, but it's just like our magnetic field and the essence of us, like our perfume or our essence. That's where we need to start every day so that we can feel our own coherency within our own cells. And then we can go into the world, and then you'll know when you're not in coherency and what you need to come back. We should expect that we're going to be pulled out of coherency. And again, coherency is one of those words that if you're like, I don't even know what that means, Christine, go check it out. You can look up the definition. But I think I gave you a good felt, hopefully, sense of it. And these words that I keep sharing with you: alignment, resonance, harmony, beauty, clarity, presence, ease, and grace. Okay, so let's officially bring in this coherency creator, this power that we have within each one of us. Coherency creator. Through my presence, I bring things into order. I see what is out of alignment. I can pinpoint what causes disharmony. I lead us to create structure that innately creates harmony between all the parts. The structures, systems, relationships, and forms are not linear or separate. They're interconnected, multifaceted, and multidimensional. As a result, they open up portals and possibility to new ways of creating, relating, and operating that innately create harmonious realities that serve and elevate the whole. And the image that and colors that go with this are like a deep purple and gold. And the image I'm looking at here, it's called the Sri Yantra. It's a form of sacred geometry. And for those of you that don't know what sacred geometry is, think of sacred means wholeness, devoted to wholeness, and geometry is geometry, shapes. And so sacred geometry is geometry that helps us create wholeness. And it is a reflection of how the universe is naturally ordered. And you'll see it in nature, you'll see it in music, you'll see it in sound and different things. And if you don't know much about it, there's a really great book by a guy named Greg Schneider. I put that into the show notes, or I'll stick the resource on my wisdom blog. But just kind of imagine that there's this think of like another great structure is like the flower of life, or anything that it just has a coherency, a beauty. Like think of a flower, right? Like one of those flowers that you're just like, how did nature make that, right? That's coherency. Like it's almost like a mandala. It's very much like a mandala. And that there's a structure to those kinds of flowers, and there's a structure to these sacred geometries with these multi-layers. And so coherency has a structure, but the structure itself has both spaciousness in it, and it also has focus in it. So there's a way, almost sometimes if you look at it, you're like, it feels like that sacred geometry is like breathing, or that flower is like breathing that perfection. But it's a perfection that doesn't feel strict. It's a perfection that is really more about harmony. And some people who have this superpower, and we all have it to a different degree, is they can be very perfectionistic, and it can come. There's always, with all of these superpowers and these archetypes, there's distortions. So for the Coherency Creator, it's like always seeing what's not right and finding the mistakes in things. And I remember I worked with someone who, with her team, she would get things back from her team, and it was working in the finance area, and she would mark up all their mistakes and then give it back to them. And I had a supervisor early in my career. He had a purple pen, and he would write. I would leave my stuff for him to look at. I'd come in the morning, and there would be all this purple pen mark all over. And I had just scrubbed. It was back when I was working in marketing. I'd looked and scrubbed all the different things, thought it was perfect. And I would come in, I'd be like, ugh. But I couldn't argue with him because he wasn't wrong. He was actually right. He was using his Coherency Creator spotter for those things. It was just annoying. And so you can really annoy people with this ability when it's just saying, here's what's wrong, here's what's wrong, here's what's wrong. Or maybe for you, it might show up like you walk into the kitchen and all you can see is what's wrong, versus your partner just cooked you a beautiful dinner. And when we're under stress and we're under pressure, for those of us that have the superpower of coherency, which all of us have it, but we can get frustrated around it, and it doesn't come out really very beautiful at all. And some people just get overwhelmed with the chaos, and they get sucked into the chaos, and then they can't even see anything, so they just get kind of lost. So those are kind of like the distortions of how that shows up. But I'm going to read this one more time, because I like to do this with the transmissions, and then we'll start kind of making this practical. But I want you to first tune into the energy of this. And as I read the transmission again, just pull out what's something that sticks out for you. This is one of the ways we can work with these transmissions. And I think I've mentioned this to you all but those that might not have listened to some of the previous sessions on this, these archetypes are connected to very esoteric, deep wisdom that really is all about what is feminine energy on our planet, or what does feminine and masculine energy, when it comes together in wholeness, what does it look like? So my superpower is taking these very deep, esoteric, across the world, across socioeconomics. It's across cultures. It's just human. And taking those archetypes and making them practical for how we can use these in our lives today. because there is banana pants archetypal energy, and if you don't know what that is, listen to the first episode from the series, flying around here. You can just see it. I'm like, are we in Star Wars? Are we in Harry Potter? Like, there are these archetypal energies that humanity gets caught in, and it keeps repeating the story over and over and over. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of this story of like the rich and the poor and the have and have nots and the greed and the just like, it doesn't have to be this way. We are co-creators, right? Like, are you tired of like the mishigas of all of this? Like, it's tired. This storyline is tired. My religion's right. Your religion's wrong. You know, it's like we can believe in God, but then we can kill people. I mean, it's just like we can make a different world, but we need tools to do that. And we need ways to access higher levels of embodied intelligence, and the archetypes are those. And you don't have to figure out how to fix it all. Our role really is, back to what Gandhi was quoted, be the change we wish to see. So if you and I can embrace that we have this power within us, and then consciously apply it, just remember in a moment, oh, right, I can be a conscious coherency creator. Yes, I'm a yes to that. And I might be having a fight with my partner, or I might be in a conversation about a business venture. And I'm going to like slow all this down and really tune into what's going on here, because I can feel the incoherency in the field. And I want to make sure that we create coherency and a coherent agreement, a coherent relationship. And that's, again, it's going to be happening in our individual lives. So listen to this and see what's one phrase, one thing that piques your like sparks for you. And you say, okay, I'm going to bring this into my life, and I'm going to contemplate this. I'm going to chew on it. I'm going to remember it when I find myself in situations that are calling for coherency within myself, within others, with the world. Even what you post on social media. Not kidding. That's for real. Okay, here it goes. Coherency Creator. Through my presence, I bring things into order. I see what is out of alignment. I can pinpoint what causes disharmony. I lead us to create structure that innately creates harmony between all parts. The structures, systems, relationships, and forms are not linear or separate. They're interconnected, multifaceted, and multidimensional. As a result, they open up portals and possibility to new ways of creating, relating, and operating that innately create harmonious realities that serve and elevate the whole. And then take a moment and close your eyes and call in to your imagination, to your mind's eye, an image of something in the natural world that creates like that holds that shape of harmony, and or something that has even been man created, but there's a coherency to it. It could be, like I said, a flower. It could be the way someone takes a dish, a meal, and puts it together. It could be, I'm thinking of like a parachute or like a balloon, like how it has like just something for you, natural world and or man-made, that just has or even be it could be music, it could be a sound, it could be a smell that brings resonance and harmony and beauty and clarity and presence and ease and grace into your system. Okay, do you have yours? Okay, if you don't have one, don't worry. We'll see. Hopefully one will come up. For mine was the apple tree came up. So interesting. Love working with imagination and visual. We're using visuals because it bypasses the mental mind and gets into our metaphoric mind and a deeper place of soul and intelligence within us. And so that's why we can work with these things in the moment to pull in the coherency and remember what it is we're doing. Okay. All right, my friends. So we have our transmission. We have our kind of words around coherency. And now this is a very somatic podcast today, you guys. So just play here with me. I hope that a lot of what I'm sharing when we're doing this in the leadership trainings and other things that I do, this particular archetype is so connected to power, true power that comes from deep loving truth. Just like think about those two words together for a moment, loving truth. And if you didn't write down the words that came also, I would recommend the words, whatever kind of came out for you, write those down too. Like these are some great words to contemplate. So I'm going to, before we make this practical to you, I'm going to bring us into a metaphor. I think it's important to understand around your power of being a coherency creator. And another way to think about coherency, when we work with it kind of at what I call like the feminine superpower level coherency, is that's the power to work with the field, the small f, your field, that's your own personal inner field, and the power to work with the field with a capital F. So that's could be relations, situations, to bring situations and relationships into a resonant state of order and harmony. So once again, feminine superpower of coherency, which operates through the archetype of the coherency creator, is this: the power to work with the field, one's interpersonal field, and the field to bring situations and relationships into a resonant state of order and harmony. So to get this, it's really such an embodied thing. It's very hard to just think about it. So I want to invite you to take your hand and put one of your hands on your heart and put the other hand on your belly with your hand over your navel. So like I like to put one hand over on the top of your navel, and then your hand kind of over your belly, and then just let your pinky kind of lay on your pubic bone. There's all kinds of reasons for this, but we're going to come back to connecting in with your body through your breath. I'm going to take you just on a small somatic journey here that I think will help you feel what we mean by coherency creator, which is really the invitation here. With those eyes closed, if you can, and one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, imagine yourself like a sword. Body, mind, heart, and spirit. A sword that one held in grounded, open-hearted, loving truth has the power to elevate a situation and a relationship from a state of chaos, blame, anger, or fear that creates separation and a lower vibration into a state of harmony, connection, and new possibility. You accomplish this through your presence and your magnetic field, which is created by your energy, frequency, words, and essence. This is accomplished through your presence and your magnetic field, which is created by your energy frequency, your words, and your essence. And just thinking about that, our words have energy. Your essence has energy. The frequency that you're operating in, like a radio station, also affects coherency. Just think about a time where you've been with somebody who could tell that they're angry and they're mad. As soon as they come into the room, you could smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it. That is us, that's our frequency. And we are like little radio channels, we don't even see it. So when you are choosing to be a conscious coherency creator, you embody going back to this, your body as a sword. You're embodying the sword of loving truth. And when you embody loving truth, you become empowered to bring things into alignment, somatically, emotionally, verbally, thinking and thought-wise, in just the energy around you. Your energy acts like a tuning fork that creates environments when you're able to really stand in that sort of loving truth, where everyone can take a breath, rest, and reset. So if you feel and imagine that straight vertical line, that like your spine is like a straight blade of a sword. And it's calling, like if you pull your everything into that center, it's calling everything into alignment, but not in a hard way, in a softer energy. It's like it's inviting it gently into the center. And that's how harmony emerges. When you're this sword, and just feel that sword running through you with your spine straight but relaxed, that center chord, the shushmuna, the chord, like if you were you're tuning your strings, if you were an instrument, from a place of alignment, what happens is you gain the power to reorder the field to one of harmony versus chaos. And in this energy, when you're in coherency, what happens is the elements in the relationship, they have the space to reconstellate. So it's not like you're having to run around and I got to fix this and I got to fix this and I got to fix this and I got to fix this. You're being a presence of loving truth, and you're centered in yourself, body, mind, heart, and spirit as your genuine self. That's presence. And what it does is it itself reconstellates the field. You just can't see it because it's energy. But it reconstellates the field into a harmonious field where wisdom and compassion and connection and understanding can emerge. And whether that is in your relationship to your body, relationship to food, relationship to money, relationships to thoughts or emotions, or even like a relational field to you and a person, or you and a group of people, or a reality in a situation that is like off and it's really ripe and ready for elevation, when you're able to radiate that loving truth as your strength, like a sword of fierce grace, almost like, fierce grace is emblazoned on its handle, what's happening, and like I have my hands right now at my solar plexus, is like you're able to clearly see the illusion. You can see the judgments, you can see the fears, and you can also see the potential connections, and you're seeing it from a centered, compassionate core. This is why to be a coherency creator, to wield that power of loving truth, the color of compassion is lavender. So that's the loving truth. Like it's like truth. There's a great parable that says like truth goes to a village, and it's like knocking on all the doors, and it wants people to let it in. It has things to say, and people keep closing the doors. Truth, no, we don't want you. We don't want you. Go away. And then the sun goes down. It's starting to get cold, and truth is like shivering in a corner somewhere. And along comes compassion and wraps a blanket around truth and warms it up a little. And they knock on the first, so truth knocks on the first door with the blanket of compassion around it, and the door opens and they let him in. That's loving truth. And those of you who haven't listened to the 8 Facets of Compassion podcast, that's part of the Genuine Power podcast, I would totally recommend you do that, where I go deeper into breaking down compassion and like, what is it and how do we access the power of compassion versus it just being this big amorphous thing. There's 8 different facets of compassion that when you kind of understand those, just open up this field. So this Coherency Creator, along with compassion, works so powerfully. And so what happens when that compassion is there and you're in your center, you can speak truth to yourself and others. That's way more likely to be received as an invitation to co-create a coherent field of connection where new possibilities and more love is created. I mean, can you imagine if social media was like this, and or, our meeting rooms and, just disagreements were like this? I can absolutely imagine it. We're just not there yet, and we can't wait for all the other humans to kind of catch up. That's our part, right? So just taking a breath and taking a beat here, as we're about halfway through. And just one last part, just really feel this body like a sword of loving truth. And feel that, see that color of purple, like the rich color of purple, the deep purple, along with the lavender. And then gold is the color kind of woven in all of this. And I oftentimes will imagine I'm holding that heart, the sword right at my heart, and knowing that your words, your energy, your frequency, your essence has the power to shift a room or situation, has the power to shift your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own relationship to anything. And just think about that for a moment. Let's just presence before we go into this next part where we're going to help you get aware of how do we get aware of the incoherencies and coherencies, and then what do we do with them when they show up? Think of a situation in your life right now. Could be a relationship with someone else, could be a relationship with a group, could be a project, could be just something that's catalyzing right now that's creating coherency. And just notice how it could even be something going on within yourself. Your own relationship to your body or to money or to whatever it might be. And just notice what and how that might feel when you're not in coherency, when there's incoherency. So we just like there's for every shadow, there's a light, not bad, not good. Notice where those incoherencies might be happening in your life right now, because we want to take what we're about to do and we want to apply it to those incoherencies that are already there. And instead of getting mad about them, because remember, catalysts happen to us and through us, or don't happen to us, they happen for us and through us, then you can step into coherency, not from the mind, but from peace and grace and like what's one step towards that. So choose something, 1 or 2 things, or even notice just choose 1 or 2 things you want to bring through this process that you're like, I'd like some more coherency in the space, either in your own experience and or something in a relational field. I'll share with you as we go through this next part. Noah and I just use this with Noah. So Noah's my partner, for those of you that have not met him yet. We've been in a relationship for 25 years, and Noah's he's like a kind, gentle giant who's also, he's not really a giant. He's only 6'4", but he comes from planet kind. And it doesn't mean he's perfect. And there are things that made me nuts when I first met him that still make me nuts, and vice versa. But we don't get into like big fights a lot, but there are patterns that can show up in our relationship that are really annoying and also create chaos in our lives. Noah is a 9 on the Enneagram, and so for any of you who know 9s, you may not know this about 9s, but a lot of 9s, when they are having internal chaos, they create external chaos around them. I've seen it for almost every 9 I know, and it might show up in paperwork, it might show up in their car, it might show up in their garage, and they also just start to forget things and lose track of what's really, really important. Or they can't, and when they're under tremendous amounts of stress. And so this happened in our life in the last month or so, and I was patient until I wasn't. So it was creating incoherency now in my life, and just things weren't getting done, whether it was we didn't have groceries or the car, hadn't gotten washed, little things to things that Noah was supposed to take care of, and our business not getting done. And then I had to ask a couple times. And so my patience is running low. And when my patience runs low, I'm not my best self. So it kind of hit a head, as they say. And I was at choice in that moment. How am I going to respond? Who am I going to show up as? And honestly, I didn't have access in that moment to be my most highest self in the world and be like, I can be very methodical about this. I was emotional about it, but I know if I let my emotion out, when I'm not grounded and centered, it can come out like a fire hose. It's very pointed. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so the anger is very easy for me to access, and so instead of just reacting from anger, I brought it forward and spoke loving truth to Noah. It was very pointed. It was not very many words, and there was a sharpness to it because it's a sword. But I didn't stab him. I didn't sideswipe him. I didn't hit below the belt, and I just let it land in the space. And then I just got quiet, and I just breathed. And he just took it in to see if he agreed. And then he asked me if I was going to say any more. And I said, right now, I cannot. That is all I can say, because if I say anything more, I'm going to get angry and I'm going to create incoherency in this field. And so I needed to bring forth the thing that needed to be said, that he needed to hear, that he wasn't aware of, because he wasn't aware of how he was creating chaos, because this happens for people who are 9s on the Enneagram and other people too. This is what is great about being in partnership and friendship with people that can say, hey, you're out of alignment here. This is out of alignment, but doing it from a place of loving truth. And then we just let it sit for a bit. And then I was able to express my anger, but in a safe container and without it being in alignment. And then we were able to come back around, and we were still, working through it. But I was really aware. I'm like, oh, the catalyst is here. The catalyst is here. And so this is the benefit, you all, of working with the catalyst and the Coherency Creator, which are right next to each other in the archetypes. Actually, you have, in the north, you have Intuitive Illuminator. In the west, you have Catalyst. And then Coherency Creator sits in between them. So when I was saying to Noah this thing that he wasn't seeing, that he wasn't seeing, I was like the illuminator and the catalyst were working together to illuminate the thing. That's the sword of loving truth. That's the initiator, to initiate and shine a light on the thing that's not being seen. But then you don't just stay there and pummel it, or even pummel it to yourself, right? You might be having something that's happening for you right now. I know for me, and pretty much, I don't know, every human who's awake and aware and conscious, we are all being patterns are coming back. And I'm like, shit, why are you here again? It's like my comparison queen came back for a little party and just, partied all over me. And a couple different patterns are showing back up. And I was like, whoa, where did you come from? And so I know that the catalyst is happening for me, not to me. And then like leaning into that intuitive illuminator, be like, hey, what's actually what's happening here? What's like, let me open up to see the bigger picture, the overview pattern. And then be with the loving truth of like, okay, like what's real here? And then from that place, be able to, through compassion and loving truth, remember, compassion's not condoning, but motivation through the heart, through love, instead of blame, shame, judgment, and fear, we're so much more likely to create coherency. Yeah? Like think of something in your life that might be kicking your ass right now, or might just be pinching you pretty hard, or maybe you have like a pattern like I do, like these patterns are coming back. And if we work the catalyst with the intuitive illuminator and how the coherency creator can be like, wow, okay, like I can see how this is wanting to come in to a higher order. And that's how elevation happens, you all, right? That's how growth happens. Sometimes I see this when I'm working with a team leader and their team, and this is true for me and Noah, where I'm exasperated in that moment by this pattern that we can't seem to shift. But in truth, when I slowed down and I really looked, progress has been made. It's just not moving fast enough, and it was slowing down and it was going the wrong direction. So let's just take a breath. That was kind of a lot. But that's the power of these three, right, of working together. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to ask you a couple questions here. You ready? Because I want to send you in here with knowledge around this so that you can be aware. We're going to start with one, let's get aware of how do you know when there is incoherency in the field, in your personal field, or in the field. So I call these the incoherency indicators. So what are the indicators that, and the incoherency indicators could be body sensations, they could be emotional reactions, intuitive senses that tell you that things are out of coherency or are on their way out of coherency. And this inquiry is magic. If you can notice this in yourself, it's where the Enneagram actually really, really helps. Human design helps with this too. Gene Keys helps with this, is that whether this is in a relationship, this is in yourself, or this is in your career or your team professionally, or even in your family system. When you know what the incoherency indicators are, you can spot them faster, and then you can work with them more like the catalyst moving happening to you, not to you, but through you. You can work with them to actually prevent a complete blow up or blowout or being stuck on the drama triangle again. And so I'll ask you a couple questions and just kind of tune into this and respond from here. So when I am out of coherency on the inside, I'm reacting from fear, blame, shame, or judgment. I'm adding to the chaos, confusion, separation, or frustration within myself and others or in the field and situation. Okay, that's what's happening when you're in coherency, when you're being incoherency creator instead of a coherency creator. So what I want to know is, okay, so when you're out of coherency on the inside and you're reacting, adding chaos and separation within yourself or others, how do you feel? How do you feel emotionally? And how do you feel somatically? And maybe just pull in an example of a time where you were not able to be a conscious coherency creator in a situation, like a recent one. Like I can think of one that happened 2 Mondays ago with Noah. where we were working on some decision-making things for our business, and I had to make some choices about what to keep and what to let go. And I was just reacting from fury almost, like not at Noah, but about the situation. And I was watching myself, and I was just, I could feel like fire coming out of my mouth. And I was like, I wasn't able to stop in the moment, but I was just like, there is something going on. So for me, I feel frustrated. I feel angry. I feel really frustrated. But for you, it could be totally different. So how do you feel emotionally? And how do you feel somatically? And maybe presence a time recently in a situation with somebody else, or maybe even in your own relationship with yourself. Like I have my hand on my heart right now. In the last 2 weeks, I have felt anxiety in my heart, where it kind of feels like the flutters in your heart, not in a good way. That is a kind of a foreign, I don't have that feeling a lot. As an 8 on the Enneagram, that I almost like can be, it's just not something, it's not my personality structure. So when I feel it, and I know other people live with that all of the time. So this is like all of us are different. But when I have felt that the last couple of days, instead of stuffing it down and, I stuffed it down for a couple of days and watched Downton Abbey. Yeah, I went back and I watched Downton Abbey reruns 3 days, not in a row, but I was up till midnight watching Downton Abbey, and I was like, this is an indicator that something is amiss, and I'm not coherent on the inside. So like that's something that you do, so what's something that you do? But that feeling of anxiety, what I do when that happens is I slow down and I'm like, okay, what's going on inside of this? And then what do I need to move this through so I can get back to my center? So why I'm asking you this question is because it's not about, I'm never going to have incoherency inside of you. Of course you are. You're a human. If you don't, then you're going to be worried that you have become AI, right? So it's okay. Like it's totally normal. It's just from a perspective of leadership and being a centered human, we don't want to react. We don't want to act from that place. Our job and role is to get back to center. So how do you feel? And then also, what do you do? Like, what are some of the actions that you might do to not deal with the incoherency that's going on inside of you? I always say, if you can know your top 5 self-sabotaging patterns and you are aware of them, and when they come up, you make shifts, that's enlightenment to me. I don't perceive I'm ever going to not have moments where I find myself watching a television show that I connected to in some way a couple of nights in a row till midnight. And I'm like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. So, and this makes me feel better about the world for some strange reason. So no judgment toward ourselves, just awareness. Okay. So when you are out of coherency on the inside, how do you speak? So I feel, ... I speak. What happens to your voice? What happens to your cadence? What happens to, do you speak or not speak? Like, remember, voice is resonance. Maybe you clam up. When you're out of coherency on the inside, how do you show up? How do you show up? Do you show up spinny? Do you show up over strong? Some people just, that could be either or, like you show up judgmental, you show up, like, how do you show up when you're not in coherency on the inside? And when you're not in coherency on the inside, what do you notice happens in the field around you? Like, I notice that it speeds up, and it's like I can feel like it heats up and it speeds up. This is why I always say, like, I know that whenever, and this is not just me, it is said, this is straight up wisdom, when things speed up, the wise ones slow down. Because the mind is where that's like, once the incoherency gets into our mind, it's gone. It's been there somatically, it gets into the heart. Once it's in our mind, it does it. It's like it's hard to break it. I see this in my border collie. When her border collie brain turns on and she becomes obsessive border collie, it's really hard to get her to get out of that. We're like that too. But if you can notice yourself and observe the field happening, it's a way to break yourself out of the, like, to shut up, to kind of just like to shut up and stop and pull back. And that happened in my conversation with Noah. I did start to move away from center, and then I noticed his defensiveness going up. I felt things speeding up. I felt it heating up. And then I took a breath and took a beat and slowed it down. So this is the thing about coherency, the way it works, how you'll know you're in a coherent field or you're creating it. It's not going pitter patter, tit tap, blah, blah, blah. Like, you slow down and you're able to like use that intuitive illuminator to see. And you're able to lean into the catalyst and see where to place the catalyst so it's swift. And then it can come together very quickly in coherency, but it's much more like soup, where we're stirring it and we're adding ingredients, like thinking even like a project or a business venture or something that's in a group setting that's off. There's no light switch that goes on and off for coherency. It might seem like it happens fast, but usually it happens over the willingness to go slow, to then have something swiftly come together. So think of a time in your life where you were able to be a coherency creator, where you were able to notice the field, you were the capital F around you, you were noticing your own inner field, you showed up in a way that you were able to respond from a center of compassionate, loving truth, fierce grace. You were able to elevate consciousness and connection and expression. You were able to bring things into order, see what was out of alignment, pinpointed the disharmony even, and led yourself, your life situation, relationship, or others into a structure that innately created harmony. What was the difference there? How did you feel in your body somatically, and how did you feel in your heart emotionally? I bet you were breathing. I'll put these into my blog post too. So if you're like, if you're just taking these in right now, that's totally okay. Okay, we're kind of putting them into your consciousness, because what I'm inviting you to do is to go into your life and really become conscious of where and how your incoherencies work, and then what and how you can move out of incoherency. And that's where we're going to end today, of how the practice is for shifting out of incoherency into coherency. But first, I want you to also really know what that feels like for you. Like, I feel very grounded. I feel very present. I feel very able to speak loving truth. And there's a slowness to how I speak. So when you are in coherency on the inside, how do you feel? And also, how do you speak? What's the tone of your voice? What's the pace of your voice? There's a difference, like you can hear people's voices being round versus sharp. And these are subtle, but I mean, this isn't brain, like people, we all know that how people receive our communication is like, I don't remember the percentage, but very high is the nonverbal, not the words. Not the words. Compassion is not a thought. Compassion is a feeling. How do you show up when you're coherent on the inside and maybe you walk into a space that's incoherent? How do you show up? And what do you notice happens in the field? Because you have power here, my friend. I know you do. Every single one of us has power here. And I don't mean power over, power dominate. I mean straight up power like a Jedi to shift a room, to shift energy, to open space, and not the drama triangle, right? So we've talked about this, but just a presence again, for those of you who didn't hear it in the catalyst, the drama triangle has 3 points to it: savior, fixer, rescuer, point 1, 2, perpetrator, dominator, 3, victim. Hero is also part of the savior. We're not here to be heroes or saviors or any of that. If you're working on that drama triangle, you're just going to create more drama. We're working on the other triangle, which is victim becomes creator, and perpetrator dominator becomes challenger, and fixer becomes coach. Coach, creator, challenger. That's the world of coherency. And again, this is not about you not being able to have your human expression. It's just don't go be a dummy pants when you're in judgment and frustration and railing against what's ever going on in the world, and then just add that into a social networking site. We're just adding to the chaos. And or even going in and trying to make it better for the community and save and all of that. Like, this also is part of like knowing our part. And sometimes our part to be a coherency creator is to just be a presence in the room and not open our mouth at all. Like, have you ever tried this on an airplane or been on an airplane when there's a child who's screaming his poor little head off, and like you're like, oh my God, this is nails on a chalkboard, and how do I get off this airplane? And then one by one, the passengers start to get really, really stressed. Noah helped me with this one. He's such a wise man. He's like, notice how the mother and the parents get really anxious. And so when they get really anxious, their energy feeds whatever's going on with the child. And so now it's just like this circle. So he's like, so our job when that happens is to send loving, calm energy to the parent and to the child. And we have, I could say, like a good 98% ratio that we have been successful at calming that child down by also bringing their parents into putting that energy into that little cabin with us. That's the coherency creator. And sometimes you just move into action and start creating coherency, and then others follow you. And this is like, if we were horses, it's the difference between being a mare who leads by gentle strength, and she just moves, and the pack followers, the herd followers or brute strength, where like the big horse is like, roar, making all kinds of noises. And that gentle strength, like, we're just going to go this direction, and you start going that direction, and you know that you're being a coherency creator. Maybe you're shifting the conversation. Maybe you're creating a structure. Just did this with one of my teams, and I realized that there was incoherency, and instead of having a big conversation about it or blaming people about it, I created a space where we could look at each other's and understand each other through the Enneagram and through human design, and what shadows were showing up, and work at it that level. I love working with people in teams around this, where it's not personal. It's like, oh, like, these are the patterns, these are the shadows, they're just the dynamic. Let's be aware of them. That was me being a coherency creator in that realm, which is partly like, I really believe that teams and family systems are going to save this world, and all of us are part of small groups. Teams and families are an example of that. Think of the ways if all you did was just not to fix, not to save, not to force, but to invite, to gently catalyze, to be a leader. And I don't know, I mean, I just feel like I just see all these like little bubbles, these little circles, like getting more healthy, getting more coherent. And again, because we're doing the challenger, creator, coach, not the victim, savior, perpetrator. That will help you. That will help you as well. All right. So we've tuned in to examples of where you've been coherency creator and where you have not. No worries. It's normal. You're human. We have then connected in on what are your incoherency creators. So like, don't open your mouth. Be careful of what you do. Like, just notice all of those, because you're going to create more chaos, disharmony, blah, 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 blah. What are your coherency indicators? So that you know that you have that ability to respond in a way that's going to move whatever forward. And then just start to notice it in the containers that you are in, and choose not to give your energy in places where, how do I want to say this? It's like the pull of the dark forces is too strong, and you're not going to be able to penetrate that. Or as Ann Richards, former governor of Texas, many moons ago in the 80s, who's also featured in Overwhelmed and Over It. This whole story is in the last chapter, chapter 12. And her daughter-in-law, Sharon, who's a good friend of mine, shared the story with me about when Sharon said to Anne, like, how do you deal with all these men? Because it's basically Anne and like all these men, and they're, big cowboy hats, and they're like bravado and all of this and that, and not always very, what's that word? When like men are like macho, like very macho in that. And she's like, I just let them talk and talk and talk and like do what they need to do. And I just say to myself, I'm not going to waste my chi on that. I'm not going to waste my chi. I'm not going to waste my energy. So think about that for yourself. Your energy is one of the most powerful resources you have. If you don't have energy, you can't really do anything. You'd be dead or depressed or sick. And so be mindful and conscious about where you put your energy in public spaces, or even in relationships, or in relationships to organizations. It's like, really be aware of that, in tune with what we're talking about, because you may start something with somebody thinking it's a good thing, and then it starts to go sideways, and it doesn't mean it doesn't have to come back into, like, coherency doesn't mean we have to keep things going. Sometimes the most coherent thing to do is to release something, to complete something. And it doesn't, so coherency creating doesn't mean fixing, like in the sense that we think we have to make it right. It really is about harmony. All right, Jedi, you ready for the last one? Okay, so here's a couple things you can do, a couple little practices, not little, they're small but mighty, simple but mighty practices. Okay, when coherency, I'm going to give you a small one, and then I'm going to give you I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a small one, a medium one, and then a larger one, and then we will wrap. All right? All right, stretchy, stretch, stretch, stretch. Oh, I can't believe we're on the seventh one. One more to go after this. Okay, but let's stay focused here. Okay, so here's the simple one. Get curious instead of critical when incoherency is present. Get curious instead of critical when incoherency is present. So you can elevate out of the emotional chaos without divorcing from your heart or creating separation from others. So remember, that's part of what creates incoherency is separation. Because you're aware of your incoherency triggers, instead of speeding up in the moment when incoherency presents itself, and then reacting in blame or protection or proving or chasing or judgment or self-sacrifice or anger, you slow down. You slow down. You feel into what's true, first in your field. Like, what's curious? What's going on inside of me here, right? So you feel the incoherency, maybe first in yourself, maybe in the other person, maybe in the situation that's just happened. But instead of reacting and responding and separating and judging, you slow down and like I literally take your hands and just kind of your fingers and just tap your heart and be like, what's going on inside of here? What's true inside of me? And then get curious about what's true in the larger field. So now I'm kind of taking my finger. You can take your finger and kind of draw a circle, right? So you're first on the inside field, then what's true on the outside, and then open your heart from curiosity and respond from your center of fierce grace. So instead of getting critical and rushing to whatever that action might be, you slow down and you get curious, and that opens your heart, and then you'll know what the next step is. Got it? Right, because we know some of those incoherencies: blame, protection, proving, chasing, judgment, self-sacrifice, anger, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Curiosity did not kill the cat. They just said that because the cat is actually a symbol of intuition, and the cat is very connected to the feminine. So it did not kill the cat. It is a good thing. All right, so that is practice number 1, the simple one. Now let me see. I'm going to give you so then the middle one, and you're going to love this one because this one is well, they're all joyful. I think the curiosity one can be a little challenging, but this one, if you've been around for a while, you're already doing this, and for those of you that aren't, you're going to love this. So one of the ways to proactively illuminate and reharmonize incoherencies in your well-being, in your health, in your relationships, in your wealth, in your financial flow, in your work, your expression, your personal needs, is to, instead of waiting to let those things flare up to get into epic proportions, aka drama, in order to get your attentions, you proactively pause. Moonly and throughout the course of the year, aka power pausing at the equinoxes for sure in March and September, pausing at the end of the year, and also pausing at mid-year to rebalance. So when you do that, when you proactively pause at the quarter points, so for example, come join us in the Feminine Wisdom Way Collective in the Flow Your Year process, or come to one of the personal leadership power pauses that Catherine and I do. I do this for teams. I do this with all the leaders I work with. Like, I have a methodology that can help you with this. We've been doing it for a decade, and I can attest, like testimony, when we do this, when we proactively pause and we use the structures that help us to illuminate imbalances and incoherencies that are happening in ourselves, that are happening in our work world, our relationships, our physical and spiritual foundation, then we actually can see what needs to change and we shift it. And this is the power of cyclical living, is that there's nothing wrong. We're like every quarter, like, okay, where's the imbalance? Oh, okay, it's time for a shift. Oh, it's time for a shift. So that cyclical living and strategic planning, pathing for your life, for your business, for your teams, for your family, so powerful. And then if you can add on the moonlies, where you're flowing with the moon cycles and you're resetting every new moon, that's also a way to take a pause and say, what's needed to shift? What am I needing this moon cycle that might be different, or where does my attention want to go? So those two processes can really help. Doesn't that sound good? I mean, really, it's so fun. It's so fun and it's so powerful. I think I was just telling somebody the other day, I think I'll be hosting and leading power pauses for the rest of my time on the planet, because I do them and I love creating that space for others. And I just wish that more people would do it. Sometimes I feel like I'm the power pause pusher, and I will like say to Catherine, I'm like, I don't understand why we don't have like 50 teams and groups who in December are saying, will you please come and do a reflection and refocusing ritual for us? Or, like we don't have hundreds and thousands of people who are part of the Feminine Wisdom Way Collective that are practicing these pauses at the 8 cycles or working with the moon cycles. It's like, it befuddles me. But I'm curious about it. I'm curious about it. Sometimes I have been disappointed by it, but I'm willing to persevere. And I invite you to try it out yourself. Okay, so here's the last one. And for this one, this is our ending meditation here. So I want you to represence something that there is an incoherency. This is the elevation practice that I was speaking to, that I'm going to just lead you through really in a very simple manner here. All right. So let's just slow down and just presence for yourself. What is a place where there's an incoherency that you want to get curious about? And we're just going to sense into what that is. Just sense in. Step one is just allow yourself to sense into the incoherency, to see the imbalance, to see what's happening. And ask yourself, what is the imbalance here? What is the imbalance? And then ask yourself, what's the judgment here? Either the judgment you have about yourself, or the judgment you have around someone else, or the judgment you have about the situation. And then thirdly, what's the need that you have? What's the need that you have here? And take a deep breath and allow your system to open in curiosity. What's the loving truth? Let your inner wisdom, intuitive illuminator, catalyst speaker, what is that loving truth? And then lastly, what's the action that will restore coherency first within you? And then what's the action that, just one action, that can start to restore coherency in the field? And then take those actions. Remember that coherency is created step by step. It's not a light switch. We move towards it. It's a spiral, not a light switch. So that is a very simple 5-part process, but to help you get curious and really make that shift. Catherine has made a practice card for this, and I will put this practice up on the Wisdom Library on my website. I'm actually taking us out of I actually created a book for the Feminine Wisdom Way, Leading, Living, and Succeeding Differently, that we have used in the last decade inside of the Feminine Wisdom Way Collective, which is a year-long, what's really a membership that people, that's not really, I hate saying membership now because there's so many memberships. It's a collective of people who are living and leading, succeeding differently, using these different superpowers every moon cycle, and then also working with the cycles to co-create and flow. And so I don't think this is available publicly yet. Maybe I should make it available publicly. Okay, that's a talk for, that's an idea for a different day. But Catherine has created these practice cards for it. And so I will put this on my Wisdom Library for you. So you can just go there to ChristinaRilo.com and get it. And whenever you're listening to this, since I'm apparently going to be doing power pauses for the rest of my life, make sure to come to my website and you can check out the Personal Leadership Edition ones. We actually do, it is part of the Feminine Wisdom collective. I also do power pauses with teams and groups. If you go to teampowerpause.com, you'll see all of that as well. You can also access it from my website. And the pausing was just such a important part. So I hope that this really supported you. And my question to you is, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to read this last poem here that I just flipped page to this page in the book, and I'll read this. So one request, share this with a friend, and then you can be each other's support for when you're in incoherency or you need to get into coherency and have language that you wouldn't have otherwise. And you can run those yourself through these processes, like the curiosity one I just did. And so do share this and get yourself a friend here to go through this with you. All right, here we go. Coherency. My friends, your superpower of coherency. Wield it with grounded, open-hearted, loving truth. Embody and embrace your innate power to bring any situation in your life into a state of harmonious order. Get curious about what is incoherent in your relationships, health, wealth, work, home, and self. Dare to illuminate the imbalances and the illusions to find a higher truth. And then elevate through alignment, resonance, harmony, beauty, clarity, presence, ease, and grace. All right, my dear ones, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon for our final episode in the Archetype series.